Hello everyone, welcome back to the new video of AP Knowledge Point. For decades, India faced a difficult reality. Its soldiers were willing to fight. Its scientists were developing new technologies. Its engineers were building increasingly sophisticated systems. But when it came to many critical weapons, India still depended heavily on foreign suppliers. Kargil had demonstrated the consequences of dependence during a conflict. But what if the next war lasted longer? What if spare parts stopped arriving? What if ammunition supplies were interrupted? What if a country had to fight while simultaneously worrying about where its weapons were coming from? That's the questions became increasingly important. And over the years, India began pursuing a different vision, not simply buy the best weapons, but build the capabilities ourselves. Aircraft, missiles, warships, artillery, radars, drones, electronic systems, and increasingly sophisticated strategic technologies. This is the story of India's journey from importer to increasingly capable defense producer. The lessons of Kargil. Return to the mountains of 1999. Indian soldiers were fighting at extreme altitude. Artillery was firing continuously. Aircraft were operating in difficult terrain. Logistics were under enormous pressure. Kargil demonstrated a simple military truth. A war is not won only on the battlefield. It is also won in factories, laboratories, supply chains, repair facilities, training centers, and logistics networks. A soldier needs ammunition. A fighter needs spare parts. A tank needs maintenance. A warship needs fuel and weapons. A military needs an industrial ecosystem behind it, and that ecosystem must remain available, especially during a crisis. The big question. After Kargil, India continued modernizing its armed forces, but one question remained. How much of India's defense capability should depend on imports? Foreign equipment can provide advanced capabilities quickly, but long term dependence creates vulnerabilities. Supply chains can be disrupted, technology transfers may be limited, cost can rise, and geopolitical circumstances can change. The answer was not to stop buying foreign equipment overnight. It was to develop the ability to design and manufacture more systems domestically. That journey would take decades. The idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The phrase Atmanirbhar Bharat became increasingly important in India's defense strategy. The basic idea was straightforward: build more in India. That meant encouraging Indian defense companies, public sector defense enterprises, private industry, startups, research institutions, universities, and indigenous design and development. The goal was bigger than manufacturing. India wanted to create an entire defense ecosystem: design, research, testing, production, maintenance, upgrades, and eventually exports. The fighter in the sky. One of the most visible symbols of India's indigenous aerospace ambitions is the Tejas. The light combat aircraft program represented a long and challenging effort to develop an Indian fighter aircraft. The journey was not quick. It involved decades of research, engineering, testing, and development. But the significance was enormous. An indigenous fighter means more than an aircraft. It means expertise in aerodynamics, flight control, avionics, materials, radars, weapons integration, manufacturing, and maintenance. Every aircraft built domestically strengthens an ecosystem, and that ecosystem can improve with every generation. Missiles strategic autonomy. India's transformation is also visible in missile technology, from battlefield systems to air defense missiles to long range strategic systems. India has developed a broad missile ecosystem. One of the most famous examples is BrahMos. It demonstrated India's ability to participate in the development and production of a highly capable supersonic cruise missile. But the story goes much further. India has developed ballistic missile systems, air defense systems, anti tank missiles, cruise missiles, and increasingly sophisticated precision weapons. The lesson is important. A modern military does not simply needs weapons, it needs the ability to continuously improve them. The battlefield goes unmanned. Now imagine Kargil in a different era. Instead of sending a patrol blindly towards a ridge, you could first send a drone. It could observe the terrain, identify movement, transmit information, helps commanders understand the battlefield. That is the revolution brought by unmanned systems. Drones have transformed modern warfare. India has been developing and acquiring capabilities in surveillance drones, loitering munitions, unmanned aerial systems, and counter drone technology. The soldier of tomorrow may increasingly fight alongside machines. The sea. The transformation is not limited to land and air, it extends into the Indian Ocean. India's growing naval capabilities reflect an increasingly maritime approach to national security. One of the most visible achievements is INS Vikrant, India's first indigenously designed and built aircraft carrier. Its commissioning represented an important milestone in Indian shipbuilding. A large aircraft carrier requires an enormous industrial ecosystem: steel, engineering, propulsion, electronics, aviation systems, weapons, radar, shipbuilding, and thousands of workers. The ship itself became a symbol. India was not merely purchasing major platforms, it was increasingly learning to build them. The underwater front. Above the surface is only part of the maritime battlefield. Below it lies another world. Submarines, nuclear deterrence, underwater surveillance, strategic communication. India has continued strengthening its underwater capabilities. The commissioning of advanced nuclear powered submarines represents another step in India's strategic deterrence architecture. These platforms are designed to provide survivable capabilities in an increasingly complex strategic environment. The lesson is simple. A modern military must be capable across multiple domains: land, air, sea, underwater, space, and cyber. Space becomes a battlefield. Kargil was fought largely through mountains, artillery, and aircraft, but modern military operations increasingly depend on space. Satellites can support navigation, communication, surveillance, weather forecasting, and intelligence. India demonstrated its growing space security capabilities through missions Shakti in 2019, an anti satellite test. The message was significant. Modern national security is no longer confined to Earth's surface. Space has become an important strategic domain. The age of precision. The nature of warfare is changing. In 1999, artillery was one of the defining weapons of Kargil. Today, precision guided weapons can strike targets at long distances. Sensors can identify targets. Satellites can provide information. Drones can provide surveillance. Aircraft can deliver precision weapons. Long range missiles can strike from hundreds of kilometers away. The battlefield is becoming increasingly connected. Information travels faster, targets can be detected faster, and decisions must be made faster. Mission Divyastra. In 2024, India conducted Mission Divyastra, associated with the Agni 5 missile and multiple independently targetable re entry vehicle technology. MIRV technology represents an important advancement in strategic missile capability. One missile can carry multiple re entry vehicles designed to engage different targets. The technology is highly complex, and its development reflects India's continuing effort to strengthen strategic capabilities. From the soldiers climbing Kargil's mountains to advanced missile technology, the transformation is extraordinary. From buyer to exporter. But There is another part of the story. If India can manufacture advanced defense equipment, can it also sell it? The answer is yes. Indian defense exports have grown substantially over the past decade. Indian made systems are being exported to countries around the world. This includes artillery systems, missiles, radars, protective equipments, naval platforms, and other defense products. The strategic significance is enormous. A country that exports defense equipment becomes part of other nations' security ecosystems. The private sector enters. India's defense industry is no longer limited to traditional government owned institutions. Private companies and startups are increasingly participating. They are working on drones, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, electronics, space systems, unmanned vehicles, and advanced manufacturing. This creates competition. Competition can accelerate innovation, and innovation can reduce the time required to move from an idea to a working military system. The new Indian defense ecosystem. Think about the transformation as a chain. A scientist develops a technology, an engineer turns it into a prototype, a startup develops a component, a manufacturer produces it, the armed forces test it, feedback goes back to the industry, the system is improved and the production increases. Eventually, the product can be exported. That is what a defense ecosystem looks like. It is not one company. It is not one weapon. It is an entire network. But the journey is not over. It would be a mistake to say India has become completely self sufficient in defense. The reality is more complicated. India continues to import important systems and components. Some advanced technologies remain dependent on foreign sources. Developing cutting edge military technology takes time. Engines, advanced sensors, semiconductors, electronic components, specialized materials, these remain challenging areas. So the story is India no longer imports weapons. The real story is India is trying to reduce strategic dependence while expanding indigenous capability. And that journey is still underway. From 1999 to 2026. Now look at the timeline. 1999. Soldiers climbing the mountains of Kargil, Bofors artillery firing from the valleys, aircraft supporting troops, intelligence gaps exposed, a nation asking difficult questions. Then came reforms, modernization, indigenous development, new missiles, new aircraft, new warships, new surveillance systems, new space capabilities, new drones, new defense companies, and a growing export industry. 27 years after Kargil, India's defense story looks very different. The soldier is still at the center. But technology should never make us forget the person using it. A fighter aircraft is only as effective as its pilot. A missile system depends on trained personnel. A drone requires an operator. A satellite requires specialists. A warship requires thousands of sailors and technicians. And a mountain still requires soldiers. Technology changes warfare, but the human being remains at its center. That was true in Kargil, and it remains true today. In 1999, Indian soldiers climbed mountains carrying rifles and ammunition. They fought at extreme altitude. They captured positions one by one, and they showed the world what courage looked like. Today, India is building aircraft, ships, missiles, radars, drones, satellites, and advanced defense technologies. The journey from Kargil to the present is not simply a story of weapons, it is a story of learning, a story of adaptation, and A story of a country trying to ensure that when its soldiers need the tools to defend the nation, those tools are increasingly available from within the country itself. 1999 taught India that courage can win a battle, but the years that followed taught India something else. Courage needs capability, from the mountains of Kargil to the skies, the oceans, and even space. India's defense story continues, but there is one final question. Can India become a true defense technology power? If you want to discover how India's next generation of missiles, aircraft, drones, warships, and space capabilities could shape the future, subscribe to AP Knowledge Point because this story is far from over. In the next episode, we will see the future of Indian defense. So, till then, Jai Hind, see you in the next episode.